Those of you who regularly travel on the national highway between Bangalore and Hyderabad aren't likely to forget October 30 in a hurry, because it was on that fateful day when a private bus travelling from Bangalore to Hyderabad went up in flames in Mahbubnagar district, killing 45 passengers. Now, more than 2 months after the tragedy, relatives of those who died in that accident are running from pillar to post, demanding adequate compensation and also action against those who were responsible for the tragedy.
As many as 45 passengers were burned to death when an air-conditioned bus belonging to Jabbar Travels went up in flames. It took 10 days for the relatives of those who died to get the bodies of their loved ones for cremation. And it seems the relatives' ordeal has not ended there. Over the past 2 months, they've been running from pillar to post, organizing demonstrations, trying to get adequate compensation. The government had offered 1 lakh rupees each, an offer that they had refused.
We have lost our world. I have lost my husband. These kids have lost their father. So we have no option to how to go forward in life. So government should support us for this.
The relatives say it is a murder because the government did not ensure an effective regulatory mechanism in place that they claim allowed private bus owners to ride roughshod over safety measures. No second driver was travelling on the bus, and a sleepy driver rammed the vehicle near a bridge.
Our 45 people who died in this accident, it's totally government is responsible for that. That is the reason we have demand to ask the compensation of 25 lakhs rupees. It's a demand only, not exaggeration, not anything, not any consideration. It's our right and a job also.
Andhra Pradesh Transport Minister Botsa Satyanarayana has so far taken refuge in bureaucratic legal.
All bus accident victims came and met me. He requested me some such as like show and job opportunity. I told, I sent my request to our Chief Minister, as request our colleagues, and the decision is not taken by alone. This is the conference decision. This is the cabinet will take it to decision. So that's why I recommended this case positively.
Meanwhile, civil society has expressed its anger by organizing protests outside the office of Jabbar Travels to keep up the pressure, lest officialdom forget the tragedy by reducing them to mere statistics. With T.S. Sudhir in Hyderabad, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Joining us now from Hyderabad is Navina, whose 32-year-old husband Shivakiran died in that tragedy. Navina, our condolences. It must be a very, very terrible time for you, the last 2 months. It took 10 days for the DNA testing to be done, for the bodies to be handed over to the relatives for cremation and last rites. Now, all this running around after the whole tragedy, does it reflect apathy and callousness on part of the government and civil society in general? How do you read this?
Definitely, sir, because the incident itself, because of the government, the tragic incident had happened. Because, it clearly shows that because of the negligency of the transport, entire transport, and the government has to take this complete, ownership of this tragic incident itself.
Navina, it has been a huge personal loss for you. Your life has gone topsy-turvy. Now, when you go through all this fighting against a heartless system, what is it that you go through every moment? Because the manner in which the government or the bus owners react is not really very, very appropriate.
For this question, I have no words to explain, sir. We are actually the media or the public seeing a person like me outside the world is different. When I came home, the person you people cannot see us. You know, it is really horrible for us to live further life for us with the small kids or whoever newly got married or who are about to marry or who had only one child in their family. Still, we wanted to fight for rest of the people.
Navina, stay on with us. Joining us also is Shakil Jabbar, the operator of Jabbar Travels from Bangalore, which operated that ill-fated bus. Also, Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, president of the Lok Sabha party, which has been spearheading this agitation on behalf of the victims' families. Mr. Jabbar, you heard what Navina had to say. You have been avoiding the media for the last 2 months now. There is a hue and cry being raised over the compensation. Surely you have to take the primary responsibility of providing adequate compensation to those who died in the accident.
See, as my part, I can only tell that we have given the announced compensation from Andhra Pradesh Tourist Bus Operators Association has been announced the very next day, and we are in the process of giving that ex gratia on human grounds, whatever has been announced. So to the relatives of the victims, we are trying to give those people. And the next compensation part, the bus has fully insured through a comprehensive insurance policy. So the people will have to wait for that, and then they have to approach the concerned authorities or the courts, and they can claim the compensation.
Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, it's more than 65 days since the tragedy. You heard what Navina had to say. You are hearing what Shakil Jabbar has to say. Now, surely something is seriously wrong with the grievance redressal mechanism.
You are absolutely right, Sudhir. This is the 67th day. Nobody disputes that there were these unfortunate, avoidable deaths in a ghastly accident. And there is a third-party insurance which is mandatory. There is on paper a law and a system in place, but in reality, not only these 45 people, this is a shocking case because it touched everybody. It could be your son, it could be my daughter, it could be any member of our family. But every day in this country, roughly about 450 people are dying. In Andhra Pradesh alone, 45 people are dying every day in road accidents. In almost all these cases, to get insurance claims, to get some kind of relief, to get some kind of sympathy beyond words, beyond talk, has become excruciatingly difficult. We're treating them as beggars. In this case, so far nothing has happened to help them. After 55 days, government announced an ex gratia of 1 lakh rupees. It has not reached most of them even today. Nobody bothered about them. They're asking them to come and apply, give legal aid certificate, etc. Everybody knows the circumstances of the accident. Everybody knows what happened. And the people are vexed. 140,000 people are dying every year, Sudhir, in this country. And this is a much larger problem, the highest fatality in the world on the road in this country. And unless we now put the system in place, we will not have safety for our children.
Dr. JP, it's not just about compensation, it's also about the absence of an effective regulatory mechanism, and there definitely the government has to take a large part of the blame.
You know, transport department is one of the most powerful departments. There's a strong law in place. They receive significant revenues after commercial taxes and excise and registration. Transport receives the most revenues. In Hyderabad, it's the highest revenue yielding portfolio. And they collect money, but enormous bribes are going on in the country. Something like 25,000 crores is the annual bribe uptake in the transport department in the country. Because there are more than 3 million trucks carrying freight, and there are millions of passenger transport vehicles. And on all these, there's enormous amount of corruption going on. So a terrible corruption cycle has set in. Instead of serving the people, they're making the people run around from pillar to post. And this is the net result. What we are seeing is really one of the more shocking manifestations. But really, it's not unusual, it's not uncommon. This is the pattern of what's happening in the country in transport.
Dr. JP, there is a statistic that really tells the entire tragedy. 40 of the 45 passengers who died were below the age of 35. You heard what Shakil Jabbar had to say, that 1 lakh rupees compensation was given. So did the Transport Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Botsa Satyanarayana, in that story. But would you say Jabbar Travels has to take the responsibility for this tragedy?
You know, any travel agent, suppose there's an airline accident, it's the airline's responsibility to take care of the people who died and their families. It's they who have to pay the insurance, it's they who have to ensure the payment. So it doesn't matter which company. If the travel company does not care, if the regulator, namely the government and the transport department, does not care, then who cares really? What is law about? Why is there mandatory insurance? This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd.
Mr. Shakil Jabbar, if I may come back to you, what have you done in the last 2 months, ever since that accident, to ensure that now at least your buses are 100% completely safe?
Regarding the safety measures, we have already been speaking to Volvo people for the bus emergency doors and other safety aspects. So there, our association from Karnataka, we have approached the Volvo company, and few prototypes of the emergency doors have been provided by them. So that in the coming days, that will be finalized by the state government and the Volvo company, and those emergency doors will be made in the vehicles, whatever our vehicles are there, will be made in that.